Hi, everybody. My name is Sam Stone, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Ansaro. Ansaro is a hiring AI company, but what I'm excited to talk to you today about are the inextricably human-to-human, face-to-face interactions that make up hiring. And at Ansaro, when we talk about AI, it's not about automating hiring. It is really about augmenting those moments, those human-to-human moments, so that you can identify and bring onto your team people who perform better, who stay longer, and who boost your bottom line. So I'm curious, who here has been through what they would consider a bad interview? Yes. Who here has been through an interview so bad that it actually turned you off to the company that you were interviewing with? Yeah. A lot of hands. So I still remember my worst interview, even though it was almost, it was over a decade ago, like it was yesterday. I was asked a series of incredibly esoteric math questions that clearly had nothing to do with the job. Couldn't answer them, couldn't get a hint, sat there in silence for about 15 minutes until he hung up the phone. I was pretty convinced I wasn't going to get that job. And 2 days later, the recruiter called me back and asked me if I wanted to move forward. And at that point in time, I realized two things. I realized that this company was paying no attention to its own interview process, and that I definitely didn't want to work there. And those types of experiences are what we are trying to eliminate at Ansaro. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about how to interview better and how AI can help. But before I do that, I want to talk about why, as a company, we're so focused on interviewing. For our customers, their key goal is to make HR a strategic partner, especially an end-to-end strategic partner for hiring. That tends to mean improving the candidate experience, promoting diversity, and filling roles faster. At a lot of our customers, their first initiatives are user-friendly career sites, more inclusive branding, passive candidate outreach programs. But what we've realized is all of this really focuses on the top of the funnel, on sourcing. And if you're just focused on sourcing, you're just filling a leaky bucket faster. If your middle and your end of your funnel isn't effective, it means that good candidates are going to be rejecting you, you're going to be rejecting good candidates, and bad candidates will still get through. And that's not the strategic end-to-end partner that our customers want to be. Ansaro helps you implement strategic selection in addition to strategic sourcing. So 50 years of psychology research and over 200,000 candidate records, data points that we've gathered, prove that structured interviews are the best way to do this. Structured interviews are predictive. They're actually a positive experience and help you win more candidates. And they reduce implicit biases that hinder diversity goals. The flip side is pretty much everybody is doing interviews of some kind. But when they're done poorly, they're no more predictive than flipping a coin. They turn off candidates, and they actually let biases run wild. So I'm going to cover 5 quick things that we help our customers do to actually interview better. First, we help them to be consistent, yet remain flexible when it comes to interviewing. So it might sound obvious, but if you're asking candidates for the same role or similar roles different questions about different competencies in different environments, it's pretty much impossible to make an apples-to-apples comparison. But you don't want to sound like a robot. The worst thing you can do is go in and read off a script. It's critical that you ask questions that are tailored to your candidates, that show that you've actually read their resume, understand their background. It's critical that you ask follow-up questions that show that you're actually listening to them. This is a great place for AI to help, to go through that resume, to highlight things that make that candidate different, and to help you prepare so when you walk in, you're able to really engage with what that makes that candidate special. 2, ask a mix of questions, specifically different types of questions. The data we've collected shows that great interviewers tend to go deep on behavioral questions, where they're able to dive into candidates' rich real-world histories and understand the why behind the what. Why did they make certain decisions and go from A to B to C? They also ask situational questions, but they do that more sparingly. focusing on the new situations that a candidate is likely to encounter in a job that they didn't encounter in the past. And they ask domain knowledge questions thoughtfully, understanding that a lot of domain knowledge can and must be learned on the job. When they do go into domain knowledge, they do it in an applied way. So instead of just asking the candidate to regurgitate information, they get them to apply it to a real-world problem. Third, they make the conversation a two-way street. The best interviewers constantly have in mind that they're not just assessing, but they're also selling. They know that the candidates that they're ultimately going to make offers to are the ones who are going to have the most choices on the table. So they're effective about managing their time. They make sure to leave time for candidates to ask questions, and they make sure that no interview ends up feeling like the candidate just got grilled. And this is a good place for AI to help coach interviewers, to help them use their time more effectively, even to dive into, is their tone positive, or is their speaking to listening ratio out of whack? Fourth, companies that are great at interviewing plan a decision-making process that values all the data points. The hiring process is far from done when the last interview concludes. For most companies, 3, 4, 5, or more people will have met with the candidate. That's a lot of data to bring together and use to reach a decision. Some companies try and simplify that by using what's called a multiple hurdles approach, where they only look at data from that final round. We encourage our partners to look at all the data, everything from the resume, the application, the first round phone screen, all the way through that last interview. But to use AI to help weight all of those data points, not to make the decision, but to help go through the 20, 30, 100 data points that you might have collected, tie all of that back to actual quality of hire, and then use that to surface insights to decision makers. Fifth and finally, ensure your organization learns from every interview. Tie that pre-hire data back to how people actually perform in the job so you can understand which competencies, which questions are actually predictive of success, as well as who your great interviewers are and what they do differently. So if you're interested in talking about your hiring or interview process, I'd love to meet with you. Send me an email at samstone@ansaro.ai, and we'll also be demoing at 4 p.m. in the Grand Hall, so please come by. Thank you.